Good morning, everyone. Today I'm back with the finale, if I may say so. Of course, this is not the last lesson, but it is the last act of The Tempest. So I've designed it slightly differently. Today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the entire act because it is extremely important that we tie all the loose ends. We identify the themes that have been woven through the text, final conclusions that have been reached, and what exactly had Shakespeare planned for the last act, because there was something very specially planned for him, by him for this play, which was believed to be amongst the last few that he penned. Yes, before he retired. Yes, even Shakespeare retires, right? All right. So we move to Act Five, and I'm going to juggle your memory because I want to take you back to events that have happened, right? So let's see. You can sort of test yourself as to how much you remember, how much you do not. Yes, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it's not after all a test for memory, but also just for you to know the sequence of events that have taken place. Yeah, that is important. All right. So Act 5, see, sixth hour while the play began. Yes, sixth hour since the play began. It's the sixth hour. If you remember, I'm taking you back to Act 1 when he first raised the tempest. Prospero and Ariel were discussing the time, and I put the quote here: "Past the mid-season, at least 2 glasses." So 2 o'clock. Past the mid-season, that's 12. 2 glasses, 2 o'clock. Then he says to Ariel, "The time between six and now must by us both be spent preciously." That is from Act 1, Scene 2. Time between six and now. Yes. So between 2 to 6. So the unity of action, the entire play takes place in 4 hours, which dramatically is possible. Uh, Naturally, it is just move one scene on the ship, the rest all on the island. So time, it's not something that you have to think beyond a space of time. And whatever happens, all the little actions of the play, the conspiracies, as it moves, is very natural movement. So remember this. So we have reached the sixth hour since the play began. The sixth hour is 6 o'clock. It began at 2 o'clock, 4 hours, right? Mm. Let's see the thematic development. Following the We are following a kind of a religious belief in a play that Shakespeare followed, a Christian concept. Yes. Why should I call it a Christian concept? It's something which is inherent in probably all religions to a certain extent. Yes, I'm saying Christian because William Shakespeare, England, yes, Protestantism did come up, and but it is a concept that is very applicable to many of our beliefs. Yes, a sin. If you see Buddhism, I mean, it's more or less Jainism, probably the same thing. Sin leads to suffering. Suffering leads to repentance. Repentance leads to forgiveness, and after forgiveness, you have reconciliation. Can you see this happening in the play? Come on, tell me. Yes? The sin, yes, the past, the sin that was committed very clearly by Alonso, Antonio, and Sebastian, right? And because of that sin, they are suffering. So the suffering is there in Acts 1 and 2. Yes. The And not just suffering happens with the realization, right? So they suffer. Prospero has already suffered for 12 years, but if you commit a sin, he suffered because he was a victim of the sin. But the sinners have suffered once they realize their mistake to some extent. So Acts 1 and 2. Then repentance is Acts 3 and 4 after the coming of the harpy, right? That's repentance. And then forgiveness and reconciliation is the focus of Act 4. So we are moving from Prospero, who is full of revenge, who's vengeful, to Prospero, who is a forgiver. So the development of Prospero as a character is also enhanced through the play, right? And what does he say in Act 5? The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. So he realizes that. See, he knows that he began, the tempest was caused, the havoc was caused because he wanted revenge. But gradually, when he realized that the people were under his control and the goodness in him came out, he is basically a good man. We cannot forget it. Yes, I mean, you can argue that he kept Caliban as a slave, but what else could you do with Caliban? Come on, you see all through the play, what has he done? There is not an iota of goodness in him. Yes, he got the opportunity. Uh, Prospero did try to tame him, give him the best of education, and gave him the same kind of support that he gave his daughter. But what did Caliban do? He took advantage of kindness, and because a born devil, remember what Prospero says. Unfortunately, Caliban is a born devil on whose nurture cannot stick. Even if we try to make him good, he cannot. So let's forget about this enslaving it. We've, the rest of it, I mean, if you look at how he gets everybody under his control, and then what is the greater virtue? What does he say? The rarer action is in virtue. That is rarer. In men, good deeds, virtue is a rarity. Vengeance comes very easily. You know, when somebody hits you, hit back. That comes first. That's what Gandhi said. So difficult. Somebody hits and you offer the other cheek. Non-violence, remember, is the sign of courage. Violence is the sign of a coward. So vengeance is for cowards. Forgiveness is for those who are courageous, right? Okay, let's move on. So what does Prospero, this entire speech of Prospero from lines 37 to 93, I shall go into detail, but that is the focus of that speech, his entire quest, when he moves, his own growth, his own development, his own realization that vengeance is not an answer. It is not for posterity. Yes, it's not for the new life that Ferdinand and Miranda will start. The new life should be based on forgiveness, repentance, forgiveness and reconciliation. Yes, so that is what he is talking about. And you see, there is heavenly music that always, I want you to put a lot of focus on the music part of it, that always accompanies Prospero's magic and action. Yes, now you see, he announces two important actions. Yes. First, I'm just lowering it slightly. First, he'll forgive his enemies and restore the dukedom of Milan. Yes. He's going to become the duke, but you know that immediately, as soon as he becomes the duke, he's going to hand it over to Ferdinand and Miranda to make Naples and Milan one, but through friendship, through marriage, not through usurpation like Antonio had done. Yes. And the second action is he break his magic staff and give up his magical powers. And what does he do? He buries it in the deep sea, far and unknown, so that it's never. Now, what do you think? Why does he do it? Yes, the magic is associated with his revenge, his theme of revenge, and that he's abjuring. Yes, he's abjuring revenge and he is accepting, yes, forgiveness. So he has to give up his marriage. So he breaks the marriage staff, and that's the second action. So two actions, very important that he announces, and so I'm going to divide Act 5 from next week into three parts. Lines 1 to 108 will be the first part. Yes, the second part will be 109 to 189. Mm, the third part will be 190 to 291. And the final epilogue. I'm putting a lot of stress on the epilogue. It is very important, much more than you won't ever find any of the other plays the importance of the epilogue that is there in The Tempest in this play, right? So what we'll do is I'll go into a detailed description. So probably I'll do act part 1 and 2 the next day, and 3 and 4 the final day. So we'll finish it in 2 classes, and then the questions, and that'll be my epilogue for ISC, right? So I hope you've got a hang of what we are going to unravel in Act 5. Looking forward to a detailed discussion. Till then, stay safe, enjoy the weekend. See you soon. Bye.